series. I'm Michael Miller, bringing people together and sharing the voices, events, and connections that shape our community.
Cheers,
guys.
That'd be true.
I'm all in to be the Miami-Dade County mayor.
That event. Tell everybody about it.
What's next? What do we have to do?
Today from Partnership for Miami, we have Justin DeLeon and Raul Moas. Thank you for joining us. You're the president and you are the vice president for education.
That's right.
Wow, we got that right so far.
Yep.
All right, so why don't you tell us about the partnership for Miami?
Sure. The Partnership for Miami is a group of 23 Miami-based business leaders, CEOs of Miami-based companies, who really care about building a Miami that works for all. So our work focuses on transit and mobility, affordable housing, and education. I lead our education work. And we're really trying to further and grow the number of high-quality schools that we have in our...
And well, pretty lofty goals, huh?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Miami deserves nothing but the best. And so if this place is going to succeed in the long term, if everyone has a chance to have a fulfilling, high-quality life here, we need to have housing that's attainable for the entire workforce spectrum. We need our roads and our public transit system to be able to move people and goods to jobs, schools, keep the economy growing. And we need schools that prepare our students across the board, regardless of where you're born, what zip code you live in. You need to be able to have access to high-quality public education.
And Justin, so Miami and South Florida has been changing a lot in the last 15 or 20 years. There's massive popularity across the globe.
Absolutely.
And certainly in the last 5 to 10, the soon-to-be former mayor, Francis Suarez, he said something to the folks out in California, and he got a billboard out there, and he had all this stuff that back then was like, oh, that's sort of crazy. No, it's sort of normal.
Sure.
And certainly since then, we've had a lot of people with a lot of money move into South Florida. And how's that been affecting the educational system that we have here?
Well, I think our education system has really been changing, like you mentioned, for not just 15 years, but probably closer to 20 or 25. So what we've seen over the past 2 decades is the growth of different school options. So those have looked like a lot of district-managed schools, magnet programs, also public charter schools. More recently, we're seeing the growth of private schools as well. So I think these are changes that have been happening for a number of decades, right? And I think parents are showing and families are showing that what they care most about is having access to great options for their kids. I think they're less interested in what system is it a part of, and they're more interested in, is my child going to learn here? Are they going to be safe?
For the people that are a little older than you and a little younger than me, it's like public schools or private schools.
Right.
That was it. Now, as you mentioned, there are lots of opportunities, and we see it with the, quote, charter schools, right? The reality is that it's a public school. It has the name of charter, and you take your kid there. And if I had a choice, am I going to take my son, daughter, to a public school that's 35 years old, 40 years old, or the bright and shiny one over there that's got people that care a little bit more, all right? That doesn't mean that they don't, the other ones, but the perception is that therefore it is better. Let's look at that and say, how can the parent who doesn't have the money, doesn't have the wherewithal, doesn't have the access to go to that other school, how can they believe in the current school board system?
How can they believe in the current school board system?
Yep.
Well, I think part of what's interesting, right, and what's great about having different options is that you can explore different options and consider them. A lot of families, from conversations we've had with them, are doing that really through their family friends, their other family members, to learn and understand what their different school options are. So even though, right, we do have more of these options, it's giving people a choice to learn, and they don't have to necessarily go by default to a single neighborhood school, right? I think also we have a level of transparency around school performance that's been growing and increasing. So parents do have access to more information. Now, we can certainly make it easier, and I think there's opportunities to do that, to make it easier for parents to navigate the system and understand what their options are and what the data means. But we've made a lot of progress as a system in terms of transparency, and I think those are good things that we need to continue doing more of to help people and families understand their options.
And well, 20 years ago, University of Phoenix said, you don't have to come to our campus. You can do it on your computer.
Yeah.
And when that first came out, I'm going, oh, what is that? And one of the big organizations that helped them move forward was Dade County. They started recognizing the advanced degrees that we get there. As soon as I saw that was the evidence that people I knew were looking for. They could go, I'm going to go over here, and I'm getting that degree. So we know that now that Zoom classes, it's just not popularized, it's just mainstream. We have a full-time, somebody who works full-time here. She's a full-time student at FIU, straight A's, getting ready to graduate. And for all my influence, I was able to convince her to start graduate school right away. Do not wait, because you never know what's going to happen. But all these things have become normalized. So how do we explain to people that it's okay, all right, for that that you can learn like that?
Yeah, I think there's been just a ton of, as Justin mentioned, kind of innovation and choice. At the end of the day, Mike, I think what we see and what we hear from parents is that they are particularly indifferent about the governance system behind a school. They want to know that their kid is safe, first and foremost. They want to know the principal and the teachers who are taking care of the kids. They want to know the kids getting a good education. And in some cases, and many cases, the best option in a neighborhood is a district-run school, right, by Miami-Dade County Public School. The magnet programs, right, the magnet schools that are wall-to-wall magnets, those are the highest performing schools in all of Dade County when grouped together as a class. And so there's the ability to develop models that meet parents and families' needs and desires, whether you're in the district or whether you're a public charter kind of operator. The inverse is also true. There's some schools that are charter run and some schools that are district run that have not seen that innovation, that have not seen the investment in the facilities, that have not seen a particularly kind of robust growth in academic performance. And that's where we at the partnership really want to have a deeper conversation. What's it going to take for every child in this community, regardless of zip code, to have access to a high-performing public school?
Can that happen?
It absolutely can happen.
One of our young ladies who works is Rochelle. She teaches 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders down in Florida City for the kids that need it the most. She lives in South Palmetto Bay. Every morning she drives to Florida City, and when she gets done, she drives all the way here to work for 4.5 hours, and then she drives home all the way back. And I see what she goes through for these kids. That it's critical for
Absolutely
them.
critical.
They are. This is it. If they don't get through this, we know it's going to happen. It's going to be not nice. So what is it the partnership can do to try to make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity?
Yeah, so the first thing is just really ground ourselves in what is true about Miami today. So establishing a common fact base that we can all reference and understand what's happening in our community through, that's the first step. So we recently published a report called Beyond the Grade that goes, as the name implies, beyond the letter grading system that the state applies. We don't think the A to F letter grading system is particularly helpful to parents, community leaders, civic leaders, business leaders who want to improve access to high quality schools. So we looked at proficiency. What number of kids are proficient as measured by the state in math and in English? And then said, hey, there's some school models that are doing really well. And then here are the hot spots. Here are the areas where for 10, 15, 20, 25 years or more, kids have not been performing well. And that's where we believe that we have a question about just optimizing our resources, optimizing how it is that we invest our public dollars into public education. There are some models in Dade County that with the $12,000, the average $12,000 that the state and local governments give for public education are getting exceptional results in really low-income, challenged communities. So we know that there are models and educators and educational leaders who are getting it done today. How do we replicate that? How do we do more of those things?
So Justin, depending on what figures one wants to believe, that children with autism, one out of between 20 and 35, 1 out of 20 or 35, depending on your belief system. But it's really 1 out of 7 have some real challenge with that. How can the partnership for Miami deal with that?
I think it's really identifying and helping to support the best school leaders, right? So the partnership's role is not to intervene at the classroom level or intervene at the school level. It's to help to lift up our community leaders, right, and specifically our school leaders. And in this case, those who have experience working with students and families, supporting students with autism, right, and making sure that as we're looking across all the schools that we have, our ecosystem of schools, regardless of what school type that is, if there's a need, right, in this case, and to your example for students with autism, that there are seats for them and that there are schools for them, right? And I think that's true. Just building on that, right? You're mentioning autism in particular, but I think that there's a very broad swath of needs, and we know that there's a broad swath of needs, whether that's academic, right, or different student interests or family interests, where we're seeing families demanding and asking for different types of schools and school models, right? And we're seeing enrollment shifting, right? So I think it's just continuing to nurture that. But again, I do think it begins, to answer your question, with leadership and making sure that we're investing in our leaders and supporting our leaders who can support these families.
Speaking of leaders, Commissioner Raquel Regalado has, I believe she has 2 children, adult children, and she sat over here a year ago. They deserve a seat at the table. That struck home with Grant and me. And so we've done our share to try to bring a higher awareness of the people that can make a difference to. And I found out the other day that one of the other commissioners also has autistic. So that's 2 out of 13. That's 3 children out of that group that's there. 3 years ago, somebody paid us a visit, said, my son graduated such and such school, he has autism. Would you give him an internship? Well, I'm an uneducated consumer, so I'm thinking of just a severe autistic child. And the last experience with me, a little kid rocking back and forth screaming. I said, he's not going to scream, is he? And as I say that, he just graduated from college. So there's seeping in, there's this whole spectrum. And so the dad starts to show me some videos that he had done on his phone. I leaned over and I said, Michael, don't even look at that, because you cannot judge this by trying to look at a picture that is this big. And I said, Doc, I said, you're saving lives, so the answer is yes. So it's going to be 4 hours a day, 3 days. That's it. I was really feeling the pressure. At the end of the first day, we offered him a job. He's been here 3 years. And I think when we give people a chance and be able to have that, and it was really because when Raquel Regalado said they deserve it, who knew?
I would add that that's true for, in particular, I think as a country, this isn't particular to Miami, but as a country, I think there's this epidemic of the bigotry of low expectations, that we perceive that because kids come from really challenging situations, low economic kind of backgrounds, challenged home fronts, that they can't learn or shouldn't learn or can't be expected to learn at the same level as kids who come from more from means. And I think that's a really prejudicial perspective to take. They can, first of all, and they deserve to be given the chance to succeed at that same level. And so when you look at some of the schools in Dade County, publicly run schools, some district run and some charter operated, whose population of economic disadvantaged families is 80, 90, 100%. And you see their outcomes, and their outcomes are as good as some of the best district and charter run public schools in this county. You say, man, to Justin's point, there's educational leaders there who are meeting people where they're at, who see kids for their potential. They deserve a chance, just like anybody else does.
So how do we get leaders like ourselves to be able to instill that thought to somebody that is a non-believer? They don't have to be against it, but I don't know, I don't have enough experience.
We got to do more of what you're doing. You're telling stories. You had an experience in your life that forced you to kind of look in the mirror and reflect. You have this great experience after. Now you become an evangelist, right? You become an evangelist for this kind of growth you had, and you're telling others about it.
I used to think there were things that were coincidental. After a while, it's not coincidental. So we had a party in April here, a bunch of business leaders.
I didn't get my invite, by the way.
All right. You're not on the list
Not
yet,
that I'm bitter.
but you will be now.
Thank you.
Because you know Grant. All right. And I said to people, you may not know why you're here, but we have Rabbi Yossi Harlik from the Friendship Circle here. Yeah. We have some people from the University of Miami from CARD, and we have the Miracle League people here. We're going to talk about Autism Awareness Month. Who walks in the front door? Somebody that received our email, and he's wearing a hat that says Autism Dad. And I go, I know this is not coincidental, but nobody knew what we were going to talk about. So he now has a show here. And our awareness about autism is like tremendous. And and I know that if we can keep talking about it and sharing that, then we can really make a difference. But let's talk about affordable housing, right? You're involved with that?
Everyone's favorite topic.
Okay, it is, right? The average person, when we hear affordable housing, that's just a legal term. That has very little to do with a whole bunch of stuff.
Sure.
But that's a term that we put on it. But what are we doing in Miami-Dade County to provide affordable housing along the levels that Alonzo Mourning did. And I think the story was correct, where he put up private money and they would be able to make a difference. Well, what can government do and contributors do to provide more housing? And we need whatever affordable is, and we need it desperately here.
Absolutely need it. And we stay away from the term affordable housing because it has this very specific kind of legal definition. We talk about housing affordability or housing attainability. And the truth is that about half of this community today, more than half actually, is spending more than 30% of their income on housing, rent or mortgage, and so they're cost burdened. You can't move on. You can't kind of move up socioeconomically when you're spending so much money of your gross income just on your basic housing costs. What are the solutions? We need really innovative public-private partnerships. We need to densify around transit corridors. So the TOD work, the transit-oriented development work that the county has led for the past 10 years around the metro stops is terrific work. We need to unlock kind of public land. So Carlos Migoya at Jackson and related are building workforce units on Jackson's campus for healthcare employees, both residents at UM's health system, nurses, technicians at Jackson. They're bringing it right on site, limiting commute, bringing prices down for workers, and offering somewhat subsidized apartments. So we need an all of the above approach to build, and build smartly. At the end of the day, the increase that we've seen in traffic, right, particularly in the south-north direction, a lot of that has been because people sought affordability on the peripheries of the county, not because the population grew by 20-30%. Miami's population has grown maybe 2 to 3% over the past 7 years. But traffic feels like infinitely worse than it was at that time. And that's because so many folks went down south to Homestead in Florida City, right? They're like, we can't afford to live here where we used to. And so now you're seeing people stuck in traffic. There's no kind of solution for that. The way to get around that, you got to build along transit corridors, plain and simple. You got to densify those transit corridors so people choose the easier, more convenient path. When that's not sitting in traffic, that's taking kind of public transit.
Thank you for that, Justice. So how do you report back to your stakeholders about this is what we've been doing here for the last 5 years, and how do you measure that success? And sometimes when it's not successful, so people can say, hey, this is working, or maybe it's not working as much as we'd like.
Well, I'll give you a specific example, right? So recently, we had the pleasure of creating a partnership with a local nonprofit called the Lucy Project. And in collaboration with Miami-Dade County Public Schools.
What is her name? I forgot her name.
Sandra Bermudez.
Yes.
is the founder. Fantastic leader, right?
Terrific.
Local leader. And I actually read about her in the newspaper, right? And I'm like, how could this be? That students far exceeded expectations. What are they doing to do that, right? I know it's possible, but what are the practices and what's the model that they're using? And how are they working with teachers to make this happen? So we get connected with Sandra. We learn about the model, right? But ultimately, what I'm getting at, and to answer your question, is, we want to see third grade literacy rates increase, right? You were kind of mentioning that before, how important it is to support our youngest learners. So when I'm reporting back, I want to be able to show that through the collaboration with the Lucy Project, right, and teachers in each of the schools that are being supported, that those kindergartners are increasing in achievement, and that we're seeing growth, and that the model is working, right? We also want to show there's more interest and there's more opportunity to grow that kind of model, so more third graders can be reading proficiently by third grade, right?
So often people that are struggling want to see somebody that looks like them that is successful. So can you share with us some success stories, whatever it is, so somebody is watching this, they're going to go, hey, I can relate to that. Boss?
I can relate to that. I mean, I think it's true kind of on every vector. I'll keep the focus on education for a second. Miami is the home of the state's #1 Title I school. So a public school that focuses or serves predominantly low-income families. That school is called Hive Preparatory. It's a public charter school kind of on the border of Miami Lakes, Opa-locka. And that school, I think the story of that school is the story of Miami. Grit and perseverance, man, right? A strip mall venture that was coming online during the Great Recession that said, what do we do with this thing? It's going to go belly up. Somebody said, stick a charter in there. They found a guy who had a background in the sciences and said, you're in charge. And over 15 years of honing in the model and perfecting the model, They serve a population that looks like Miami. 80% economic disadvantage, 22% English language learners. So this is a story of this place, and their outcomes, their academic outcomes, rival those of some of the best public and public charter schools in the county. And that to me is a story of Miami. It's perseverance, it's tenacity, it's a can-do spirit. Nobody here feels like they're owed anything, that they're going to figure it out. And that's what I'm betting on, and that's what we're betting on at the partnership. That this isn't about kind of assigning blame. This isn't about kind of calling out XYZ actors. We have an opportunity as a city on fire, a city has tremendous momentum. We're calling out kind of Mayor Suarez's call to action. We have an opportunity to lead the nation on education, on access, on all these things. We already lead the nation in many respects when it comes to public education. We think we have not just the ability, but we deserve to go way, way, way further.
Well, we know the Dade County School Board is about to right-size the school system with so many students not being there. I have a lot of campuses that are, I don't want to say empty, but pretty much so. Sunset High years ago had 4,500 people. They switched the type of education that's there, which I think is marvelous. Sorry, it's a third of that. So what's going to happen with some of these schools? Maybe, I'm sure there's some high school, but the other ones, what's going to happen with that property? And as far as being able to provide local education for people?
I think it presents quite a bit of opportunity, but also requires really careful and thoughtful coordination with the community along the way, right? We're already seeing examples of it in Miami-Dade County, right? We know that Southside Prep opened up and it has some workforce units in it, specifically for teachers, right? So just as a specific example, we know that that there's interest in exploring how do you locate two schools together, right, and make use of that facility so that parents can have multiple options in one building, but still center schools as a community pillar, right, and make sure that they're there and available to families. I think we're going to continue to see a lot of innovation and exploration on what's possible with the land. I think the other part and to consider here too is these are really hard decisions, right, that the district is navigating and that the community is navigating. But we also have cases where it costs 2 or 3 times per student to educate a student at a school compared to a school a couple miles away or even a mile away because of the difference in enrollment, right? So there's also opportunity to provide more programming, right, more support, more instructional support, additional staffing. So even though we're seeing this in Miami with changes in enrollment and declining enrollment, that's happening in every major city across America. I guess as Americans, we're all navigating this together. And so I think it behooves us to look outside of Miami and look to what other cities are doing for
And
inspiration.
certainly it feels better that it's just not us, that it's everywhere.
It doesn't make it easier, though,
Yes.
right?
Yes, and we know Ken Griffith just gave $50 million to a group that's coming down there, opening up additional educational opportunities for kids. And sometimes it is the teacher that makes all the difference. When I was in school, I was failing in class, and the professor says, "Hey, come on, I got a special class for you." Okay. So I go to their office. There's 2 desks. Like this bit. What's going on, Michael? I was 20, 18. When I start typing, I get frustrated. I rip the paper, did I say this? Out of the typewriter. And so here it is 50 years later. This is what you said to me, Michael. When that happens, why don't you just stop and pause, wait a minute, and start again? Mm-hmm. That was the teacher that said that. Who knew years later that's what the delete button does so perfectly? And so let's talk about, if you would, some teachers and educators and professors that have made a difference in your life.
I couldn't agree more, Michael. I can't tell you, as we got the partnership started, we spoke with a lot of folks, CEOs in town, business leaders, and we talked about the things we care about, transit and housing are always top of mind for people and their workforces. But education, that's when people kind of came alive, and they're like, it was a teacher who told my parents, who did not know better, because they were doing the best they could with what they had, that I should be in this program or that track or this thing over here. And today I'm the CEO of X massive company. And so I don't think, we talk about a lot, but I don't think we really pause enough to celebrate the miracle workers, heroes, saints that teachers are, that all educational leaders are, right? And in the past several years in particular, Miami is not workable for them, right? To be an educator today, with the pay and the cost of living here, it's really hard to square those numbers. And so when Justin talks about Southside, or we talk about some of the other work that's happening that could happen on public-owned, kind of the public land that the district stewards on behalf of taxpayers, we think that one of the most important things is celebrating those teachers, is giving those teachers who make all the difference in the city a really dignified place to live. And all that. So that's that. In terms of teachers, I've been extraordinarily blessed to have really great mentors who happen to be teachers, right, along the way, and all that. I'm fortunate to have had several years of Jesuit kind of pedagogy and Ignatian kind of pedagogy embedded in me, and that made all the difference. I think it all made all the difference. I think you called it out earlier, this idea of we have a shared sense of responsibility to each other and duty that maybe is present in different ways. And for me, I think the biggest impact teachers had for me was really shaking me and saying, you were called for more. You are called to do unto others. You're called to seek the highest and best good that can be developed here, not for your own kind of edification, but for the goodness of others.
There certainly is operating your life on a whole different level when you do that, and it's way above, just yourself. Why don't you share with our viewers some of the particular projects that the partnership has done, and what does the next couple of years look like?
Absolutely. By the way, since you asked about teachers, I do want to just praise a reading coach that I had when I first came to Miami as a public school teacher. Her name's Miss Lockhart. She was looking out for me. I'm a 22-year-old, working at a middle school, and helped me to think about the value of relationships with students and families, and getting to know, like you were talking about with your teacher, getting to know each student, right, and beginning to understand what differentiating instruction looks like. So what are we doing, and what have we done? One of the first projects that we launched was focused on helping school principals and their teams to tell the story of their school and recruit families and students to their schools. We talked about how enrollment is shifting, right? Principals are continuing to get more and more on their plates. These are new capabilities, right, to be able to compete, really, and help get the word out and let the community know about your school and teach them and open the doors to them. So we supported 6 schools last winter into spring in helping to recruit those students. We talked about the Lucy Project, right? So that will be helping for public schools to increase student achievement in early grades literacy. And then, like Raul was talking about, it's understanding and learning about and helping our highest quality leaders in schools to replicate and grow. Carlos mentioned Hive, right? But we're continuing to sit down with people and meet with leaders to understand what they're doing, right? And what's leading to outcomes with students. And then the conversation is about how can we help them to grow, right? So we will continue to do that. And I think in terms of projects, I do feel we have a tremendous responsibility to keep telling the story. You were talking a lot about raising awareness on autism. We feel a tremendous responsibility to keep raising the awareness about where we are in education. It's not about placing blame. It's about, like, how can we have an honest conversation and be clear on where we are. So we will continue to do that through reporting and conversations like this one.
So we know there's a big fundraising day coming up pretty soon. Tell us about that.
So Give Miami-Dade is happening I'm biased here. I'm on the board of the Miami Foundation, which is an
Say that one more time, please.
I'm on the board of the Miami Foundation.
Miami Foundation.
The Miami Foundation. Give Miami Day is Miami's biggest day of giving. It is when we activate tens of thousands of individuals across our community, hoping to make 100,000 individuals, unique contributors this year. And it's really just about giving back. And so whatever cause matters to you, whether it's education, whether it's animal welfare, whether it's housing, anything and everything that you can imagine supporting to make Miami better, the Miami Foundation has found great NGOs in town who are doing that work and have created an easy way for you to contribute. $10, $50, $100, whatever it is that you want to back the day. And the idea here is, Grant, we were talking about this earlier, is just to show that Miami is leading the way nationally, right? So oftentimes Miami is thought of as like not being there yet. We're not New York, we're not LA. Guess what? We're one of the most charitable cities in the country. when measured, when you include kind of tithing, when you include kind of taking care of family in other countries, Miami gives back tremendously, and Give Miami-Dade is one way to do it. So if you want to learn more, givemiamidade.org, the miamifoundation.org, both websites will take you, and you can register, contribute, and have your donation partially matched.
So we know that the Miami-Dade County government just submitted their final budget. It was approved. Prior to it, the administration working out, there was a claim there was $420 million deficit. And it was certainly an opportunity for the government to say to a lot of not-for-profits, we're not going to give you that money that you've been getting. I think most of them got it for this year, but we're put on notice. This is not a forever thing. We had some money, we're going to give it to you. So this is a time for people to step up and say, listen, don't rely on the county, all right? Make the donation to the organization that you want. And if people haven't been giving, got to try it. It's really neat, all right? And in the simplest way, if somebody wants to try out what it's like, pay for somebody's dinner when you're walking by. Just go tell the waiter, all right?
Yep.
I'm going to pay for them, all right? And there's lots of little things that you do, for yourself. But the person that receives it, it's an uncanny, beautiful thing to see that happen. Granted, we've always been givers. And Hurricane Andrew, 30-some years ago, our house was destroyed. People started sending us stuff. And it just started coming. And I said, what did we do to deserve this?
Yeah.
So 30 years later, recently, I'm walking through the building, and I just stopped. And I said, what did we do to deserve this? And I had an answer, because we're good guys. And when we can teach ourselves and others to give, and to let people give to you if that's what they want to do, because there's an enjoyment of giving, and then there's an enjoyment of receiving. And so people can start with you if they want to do the Miami Foundation, or wherever it is, or it's a local charity. They could do Be Strong, Michelle Shirley, my favorite chief heart officer. You can go to their websites, give the $10 or the $20, and get your children involved in it, because they will get so much out of it. So,
Completely.
Justin, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I look forward to my invite to the next party.
Okay, it's coming up. We're going to look at this camera right over here. Folks, thanks for joining us. And my brother Grant and I now subscribe to the Disney rule, which is when you hug someone, don't stop.